All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, guys. This is Jeff with Fluent American, and we are here to target your pronunciation. What you guys are going to see at the very top, I have it pinned. You can send me an audio file, and we will spend the next hour and a half or so looking through your pronunciation files and giving some suggestions on how we can improve them in American English pronunciation. Okay. Now, you're going to see this time there's going to be a couple options for sentences. Normally, we do like a speaking option and a sentence option, but today we have two sentences that we'll be taking a look at. Firstly, this one here. Hello to Emmanuel. Good to see you, man. Our first one here is going to be the ghost was clothed in a rose colored coat. And then our second option here, you have to take a look at this on my other screen. The woman and the man were with the women. Okay, the woman and the man were with the women. So those are going to be our two sentences that we're going to be taking a look at. To start, we're going to be discussing just some characteristics. How can you say these sentences in a way that sounds natural? So let's begin that. Give me a second just to move some things around for us. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this first sentence. So again, the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. So notice that this sentence is going to have lots and lots of O sounds, right? So let's talk a little bit about that O. So when you're making the O sound, it's this is a diphthong, but I'm always a little bit nervous to tell students which sounds are diphthongs and which sounds are not, because when I tell students that a sound is a diphthong, they tend to make things extremely exaggerated. So they'll do things like oh and things like that, and that's just not the most natural sound. Okay, so the very first thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that your placement is low and relaxed. You should be feeling this down here, and you want to make sure enough air is going through your throat. If you're hearing a sound like that's a sound that your throat's probably a little bit too tense and it's not allowing enough air to get through. Okay, versus like okay. So just a note on that. And then he asks, "Hey, Danny, great to see you. Tutto a posto, eh? Non c'è da lamentarsi. Come va da te? Tutto a posto? Tutto bene?" So again, with this O sound, just some things to keep in mind on that. Low placement, relaxed. Notice that your mouth can stay actually relatively wide for this. Like, notice that my lower jaw is going to close slightly. Okay, not a whole lot. But it doesn't need to be like, oh. If you have a hard time with this sound, one option that you do have is you could close your mouth more and have more rounded lips. Okay. Oh versus oh. Yeah. So notice that for me, it tends to be wider, but it's not necessarily wrong if you close your lips more, especially if you find this to be a difficult sound to reproduce. So again, like oh. Hey, Danny, that is great to hear. Yeah, just trying to have some fun during the weekend, right? Oh, I forgot my water. I made water right before this, and then I forgot it. I think I left it on the table. So at some point, I may need to grab that. Just a note. But yeah, so that's going to be our O sound for the sentence. Naturally, there's going to be some other things you want to watch out for. Okay, so our O words are going to be ghost, ghost. Just try to say that with me really quick. Ghost, ghost. Our next one, clothed, clothed. Okay, so a key thing you want to watch out here for clothed is that notice it's going to go from that TH to that D sound. It's like th, th. Can you hear that transition? You want to make sure you're not adding a vowel sound in between that. So it's not the, it's clothed. Another thing you want to watch out for that you can use to kind of check yourself when you're pronouncing that is you need to pronounce the TH long enough to hear a vibration. So as soon as you hear that th, you can release and move on to the D. Okay. So like th, clothed, clothed. Okay. Your next R sound, your next O sound is going to be that R word, rose, rose. Okay. Make sure again you're not saying rose. It's not row. It's row, row. Can you just hear how much more air is making it through? Again, difference between O and O. Really try to pay attention to that. Try to catch yourself as you're pronouncing that. The other thing you want to watch out for on rose is that that S is going to be voiced, right? So you should be feeling some vibration here. It's like Z, Z. It's like rose, rose. And then lastly, coat, coat. Okay. Coat, you can pronounce that with a held T sound or a normal T. So you could say coat and release that breath, or you could hold it. It's like coat, coat. And again, when you're doing that, if you're using a held sound, a couple things are happening. First thing is that your throat's tensing a little bit to block air. And then the second thing is that you're also shortening your vowel sound. Okay, so notice that the vowel sound is different between coat and coat, coat, coat. So again, held sound, you're doing two things. You're tightening a little bit to block that air, and then you're also shortening your vowel sound just a little bit. So that way, let me get more of that sound. Okay, so those are all of your O sounds in that sentence. Other things you want to watch out for. Let's talk really quick about stresses. So which words would you stress here? Um, so what I'm expecting to hear in today's audio, and I haven't had enough time to listen super closely to everyone's audio just yet. So it'll be a new experience for me and a new experience for you. I was just making sure they were okay for showing to everybody. But what I'm expecting to hear a lot of people doing is I'm expecting probably to hear about 4 stresses. I'm expecting people to stress ghost, clothed, rose, and coat. It's like the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Very punchy, right? The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. And there's nothing wrong if you do that. I think that's a natural way that you could do that. Um, One exercise that I always encourage people to do is trying to say sentences with fewer stresses. I think it's a good experiment because if you've heard me before, then you should be pretty much aware that I'm always kind of telling people that I think English language learners tend to have more stresses and more thought groups than native speakers do. Okay, so I think a good exercise, and this isn't to say that you always need to do this, but kind of just a good exercise to begin practicing, is seeing if you can cut down, see if you can reduce the number of stresses that you're using. And what this can help do is it just gives you a little bit more room to kind of flow. It lets you kind of get more expressed, okay, and a little bit more naturally instead of pausing. Okay. Let's see. Emmanuel saying I fudged up the stresses. I mean, that's that's why we're here, right? We're here to see what's going on. And it's very common for people to have different stress patterns. So it's if you use different stress patterns, stress is very subjective. Where I put stress may not be where you would put stress, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean the stress you're using is wrong. Okay, it's just um, everyone's worried about the stresses now. It's okay. We'll survive, guys. I promise. Hello to Mesa. Great, you can make it as well. So if we were going to limit the stresses here, so if we had 4 stresses, but we're going to try to limit this, what are some places where we could cut? I would say probably cut off your subject. Okay, it's not super often in English that you need to stress your subject, so we could probably cut the stress on ghost. And coat would be your last major content word, so coat could be a natural place where you'd want to keep the stress, so that means remove the stress on rose. Okay, so if you wanted to have 2 stresses, you could say this as the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Something like that. Okay. Hello also to Zobeda checking in. Great to see you as well. I'm glad everyone can make it here. I hope you guys are having a great weekend, enjoying your Saturday. Yes, those are the places where I would put the stress in this sentence. And lastly, what else could we say here? Ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. What are any linking and things? Ghost was clothed. Notice that linking between like the ghost was. So I kind of like held T on ghost, linking with the W on was. Like ghost was. And Roger's checking in from Brazil. Raw haired. Great to see you, man. Thanks for joining us today. Okay. And asking about linking. Yes, let's discuss that more. So like ghost was, I think honestly, what you'll hear some native speakers do is actually kind of, you can use a held T or honestly, even potentially remove the T, especially if you say it fast enough. So instead of saying ghost was, you could say that ghost was. Can you hear that? Ghost was. I'm not even using a held T. I'm just doing an S, just taking off the T on ghost and linking with the was. Ghost was. The ghost was. Ghost was clothed in a. You're gonna have some linking there, right? It's like clothed in, clothed in. Okay. Um, clothed in. And there's going to be more linking there too, right? Because the in, so you get that N sound onto the us, like in. So you're going to get like three major things that are going to link together here. It's like clothed in, because just a note on that. It's like coat, clothed in, okay, the ghost was clothed in, okay. Rose-colored coat, rose-colored coat, and that'll be your reduced part. So all of those things together. So we said stress on clothes, stress on coat. We said some places with linking. This would sound like the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. All right, so that is our first sentence. And again, I gave you guys a second sentence that you could send audio for. And again, if you have not sent in audio, then I strongly encourage you to do it because we already have so many files to take a look at, which is great. And I want to make sure we have room for yours as well. So you can go to this link and send in your audio file. Look at the instructions there at the top. Okay. Here's our next sentence, a little trickier in different ways. The woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women. Okay. So this is kind of practicing your a sounds that link with the letter N. It's like and. Yes, this is very much true. I said option 1, option 2, and everyone took that as I want to do everything. And it's like, okay, I'm going to try to get through as much as I can. But we'll take a look at that. Okay. Then he also asks here, does all right have the dark L? Yeah, so typically if you see the letters A-L together, that's usually a sign that you're going to have a dark L sound. Okay. So like all right, because that, you're not saying all, you're saying all with like the back of your tongue high and the front of your tongue down. It's like all right. Okay, so just some notes on that. So, okay, so you have all right. Yeah, you also see that, for instance, other words that have that too. For instance, like a word like talk will have that situation going on as well. Hello to Douglas. Thanks for checking in. It's great to see you. Okay. So we said another word, ball. It's like talk, ball. Even a word like, for instance, like several. That's another one too, where you'll see that kind of like that. All combination too. Just a note on those. All right. Okay, so going back to that second sentence that we can take a look at. Okay, so the woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women. So what's going on here that you want to be paying attention to? So firstly, again, and combinations. We've talked about this ass sound before. So it's like your ass sound like in cat. So again, make sure that your placement's coming from low in the throat and enough air is making it through. So again, like ah. What I see a lot of students doing is pronouncing like an eh. If that's kind of the sound that you're getting, then you're too tense. Yes, we can hear the voices. No, we are going to hear the voices. Don't you worry. We're just talking about what are some things you want to watch out for in these audio files. Okay, when we listen to them. Some other things too for, again, so that and combination, right? So and. Okay, so for instance, a word like the name. So the woman's name. And if you're saying and or like an, those aren't quite the right sounds. Again, the sound's going to be more and. You're going to feel your tongue sliding back a little bit more, just a note. And you're also, as you get closer to that N sound, you want to make sure you have like a heavy breath out of your nose because it's a nasal. So when you have this A sound that links with a nasal, not sure what a nasal is. It's like the letter N or the letter M or the letters NG. Okay, so like those situations. Okay, so when you have that sort of linking going on, again, it's going to sound more like and. So test yourself. I would encourage you to record yourself too, so you know what you sound like. If you hear and or if you hear on or anything like that, that's not quite the right sound. Okay, so just a note on those things. Okay. So that's going to be, you're going to see that for man, but we're not going to see that for the second word. So for woman, woman, that's that, the woman. Okay, at the beginning of the sentence. Notice that this case is going to be more women. That men, it's a reduced form. So a lot of times, like when you see man, if that appears at the end of a word, it often gets reduced. And it often gets reduced to like a short I type sound. So it's gonna be more like eh. It's like meh, like men. It's like woman. Okay. So I wouldn't say it reduces to a schwa necessarily, just a no. I think it reduces more to a short I. I think it's going to get you a more natural sound. Um, Also, make sure, of course, that the stress on that word is the first syllable. So when you're saying woman, notice that that first syllable is really the one that you want to dominate. The second syllable is pretty fast. Okay, you want to make sure you're not saying woman. It's more woman. Second syllable is pretty fast. Okay. Um, Compare that to the last word with the plural form, which will be women. Okay, heavy like short I sound for the first syllable, more wi, and then again a faster short I sound for the second syllable. It's like men, women. So again, woman singular, women plural, women. It's just a note on those. Okay. All right. So we talked about woman and women, and we talked about man. Some other things that you want to watch out for. Watch out for were. Okay, so for um, were. Make sure that your R sound is also super relaxed. I've talked about this a lot in recent videos, but one thing I see with students is when we're working on placement, students are paying attention to vowel sounds, which is great. Vowel sounds are the key parts of words, but placement's also true for consonants as well. So you want to make sure that your placement for consonants is also low and relaxed. So, for instance, that making sure that that is low and not tense. So it's not like you're saying were, or if you're saying weh, that's also not quite right either. Okay, so making sure that it's low enough and things like that. Okay. All right. If anyone has any questions on were, okay, be sure to let me know. And the woman and man are with the women. If we're talking about stresses, places where you could put stresses, you could put the stress on woman, you could put the stress on man, and you could put the stress on women. So you could say the woman and the man were with the women, the woman and the man were with the women. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if, let's say, you want to practice cutting out some stresses just to allow your sentence to flow a little bit more, I think you could probably cut off the first woman. Okay. So, for instance, the woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women. So, if you're looking for just two stresses, that could be an option. Some linking that's going to happen. So you could do like in the man, in the. So how do you link those and in the? You get like in the. It's like the woman and the woman and the woman and the. Just practice saying that to yourself with me, like the woman and the woman and the woman and the. Okay, in the. Okay, and similarly at the end of the sentence we're with the. So instead of saying we're with the, you could say we're with the. Okay, so notice that th on with is going to get a little bit overpowered by the th on the. We're with the. Okay, in terms of your linking. Okay, the woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women. Okay. All right, and I think those are the notes I have about the stresses and the linking and the reductions that you could encounter there. Okay. Uh, Question here. Woman has a short. It's like woman and the man. Good question. Because I would associate it more with a schwa than I would with the g. It's not w. It's more g w. But I can do a quick check for you. Okay. Sorry, you are going to hear my keyboard going really quick. Let's see how they treat woman. Give me 1 second. Well, yeah, you can actually. So what I'm seeing is that in general you can use your omega sign. Okay, for woman, it's like wha. But I think if you have it more relaxed, that can also work as well. Okay. Um, so I'll say you do have some flexibility, but if you use it as the same sound as good, you'd be okay. And that is again, one site I really like using for IPA, just kind of checking IPA, is Wiktionary.org. I think it's a nice use resource to take a look at. So it's a great question there. Okay. All right. So again, that was our second sentence there. And if you guys, of course, have questions about either of those two sentences that we'll be looking at today, you can be sure to let me know. I'll be checking in with the chat. I'll have it up. But you're not here to hear me talk all day. You guys are here to get some feedback for your pronunciation. So let's take a quick look at that. And again, there are still opportunities if you want to have your own pronunciation analyzed today. What you can do is you can go to this link right at the top. I believe I have it pinned, but it may not be. So that way you can send your audio files. Basically, you'll go to vocaroo.com. You'll record yourself. It will give you a link. You post the link in the document, and I take a look at it. Actually, something I always kind of lose time for is, I have a section where people can ask some questions. So we've already gone over general pronunciation things you want to watch out for. But let's try to answer maybe a quick question. Okay, so I see a question here. This is from Delphi. Give me some sentences to check out. Okay, if we have time, we'll try to take a look at those audio files. Delphi, if you're here and we don't get to them, if you give me permission, I may be able to do a separate video on them if we don't get time for them today. Just send me permission if I'm like, hey, yes, Jeff, you can make a video analyzing my pronunciation. Let me know, and I'll be happy to take a look. Just leave a note in the chat box or in the comments if we don't get to it today. We also have a question here from Zobeda, I believe. Can D sound like a stopped T? Yeah, so let's, so held consonants. So typically when people think of held sounds or stop sounds, whatever you used to call them, typically the T is probably the most famous one. So for instance, a word like state. So instead of saying state, you could just say state. Okay, so T is pretty famous for that. But it's not just T's that can be held. It's pretty much any of those consonants that can release a breath. So for instance, this is also true for D sounds. It's true for P sounds, B sounds. Any sound that has a breath released after it. These are all places where you could release or where you could release the breath, or you could hold it. Okay. So for instance, to give you an example with a P. So for instance, like instead of saying stop, you could say stop. Or for instance, a word ending on a D sound. So like instead of saying dad, you could say dad. These are all options there too. So held sounds are not just for T's. T's kind of just, they're the famous ones, but there's other ones that can also do it too. Okay, we also have a question from Laver, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. They have a question about their placement. The placement's a mystery for them. They want me to check their placement. Yes, we will be checking everyone's placement as we go through the audio files, so don't you worry. Everyone will be subject to analysis. Don't you worry. Okay, so those are the questions I see right now. If you guys have other questions that you would like me to answer, you can add them to the document. You can place them in the chat, and I'll be trying to take a look at them. But let us now, if I can find where my mouse went, we're going to take a look at your audio files. You guys will see me putting on my headphones, so that way I can hear you, and I'll also be sharing my audio so you can hear what I hear, and you will be able to see what I see. All right. Again, at some point, I'm going to need to run and get my water because I do a lot of talking, which is great. I'm more of a quiet person. Okay. Let's see what I can share. Give me one moment. Okay, and I have the chat box open. All right, so you guys should be able to see what I'm seeing. Can you hear what I'm hearing? Oh, you cannot hear what I'm hearing. That is a problem. Take two. 2 takes. Sorry. Okay. And again, I forget which order I'm doing this on. So my apologies if we do things out of order. It's going to start here. Okay, let's listen to this twice, and then we'll kind of give some feedback for it. So here's the first time.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Play it one more time.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Sounds very tense. It's like the women and the men were with the women. Slightly exaggerating. It feels very closed off and kind of shut. And I want to try to get more breath out of this. Okay. So what are some things that we can recommend for that to happen? Let's go to the beginning of the sentence a bit.
The woman and
so like, this is especially common for like Russian speakers, like woo woo versus wah. Can you hear a difference between woo and wa? So instead of woman, more woman, the woman. Okay. Back of your tongue, pretty high. Front of your tongue, keeping it down and low. And again, more wa, wa. Okay. And if you're pronouncing this, so if you're saying woman, but you're getting more of a woo, woo, see if you can drag the sound down. It's like woo. It's like woo. What I'm doing is I'm sending the sound from like around here, and I'm getting it down into a lower spot in my throat. Okay, so it's like woo, woo, woman, woman. Okay, so just a note on that. Okay, so that's my first suggestion there. It's like woman, the woman. And let's move to the next part.
The woman and the man.
Man versus man. Hear a difference between how I'm saying man in the original?
The woman and the man.
Because I'm hearing man versus man. Man, the woman and the man. Okay, it's a little bit more open. Okay. The woman and the man. Okay. Woman and the man. And then the beginning part.
The men were with the women.
Women. We're with the women. So short eye, long eye. Super common confusion. Lots of people have a hard time with this. Short eye does not exist in a lot of languages. So there's a very good chance that this I sound does not exist in your first language. So definitely be careful with that. Okay. But again, it's more women. Women. So if you find yourself saying women, women, see if you can get that sound lower. So it's not we, it's more it's like we just sending that sound down. Okay, you can hear me doing that. Women, women. So and so the woman, how was it? Women versus
Women.
women. Women. I do like that your first syllable is pretty strong and your second syllable is reduced. I really like that. That's going to make it sound super natural. Because that's great. I do applaud that. But again, more women, women. Okay, it's just a note on those. Let's play that original audio again.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Women versus women. Okay, the woman and the man were with the women. Anything else besides vowels I want to mention here?
The woman and the man were with the women.
Yeah, I think the vowel sounds are the big things I would encourage you to take a look at. The second thing, a much more minor thing. I want you to hear the linking on the with the
women.
Back it up a little bit more.
Men were with
the versus with the I would have been a little bit faster on that linking and a little bit more reduced. So instead of more the faster, more reduced, a little weaker. With the women or with the women. And again, you can see the beginning of the stream where I talk more about that. Okay. But yeah, so those are my major comments for this. If you have questions and you're not joining us right now in the chat, that's cool. Just leave a comment and I will see it and provide some help. Okay. But thank you for sending your audio. Again, as always, I cannot do this without you. All right, and we have a question here from Z. Could you put a video, put all your sentences in it, maybe cutting the beginning of your live stream start? Yes. Which parts do you want to include? Do you want me to include also the audio that people send me, or you just want me reading the sentences? What would be more helpful? Okay, so just let me know on that. But yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I've actually had similar thoughts. Okay, we're gonna load up our second file now. Okay, and by the way, when you if you want to submit your own audio, and again, this is the place you can do that, the link. This is what you'll see. Okay, so you'll see we have directions. You can set the top. You can also see again that we do pronunciation practice like this every single day in our Telegram group. Okay, so you can see that. If you want to find out more information, click that link and it will take you to Patreon. So you can join our Telegram group. Okay. And again, you'll see the two sentences. For now, I would say if you're adding your own audio, I would say just send me one sentence because I want to make sure we have time for everybody. Okay, I don't want to cut anyone off. Okay. Let's listen to our next one. I think this is a new one.
the women and the men were with the women.
Let's put that again.
The women and the men with the women.
Okay, lots of pauses, lots of thought groups. So something I would encourage you, especially if you're doing like shadowing type exercises, is um, I'll put it this way. I think a lot of people when they're learning English, they're very focused on clarity. So what tends to happen is people are super careful pronouncing every single word clearly. And the only issue that can come with that is, well, it depends on your goals. Okay, if your goal is just to speak clear English, great. That's a tactic you can use to make sure that your English is coming off very clearly. But on the other hand, if your goal is to sound natural, that clarity is going to have an impact on how you sound. Okay, because when you speak so clearly, you're typically making your sentence a lot choppier, and it's not going to have quite kind of that natural feel to it. So if that is a goal, if you're super interested in clarity, then what I would recommend is hey, I would recommend paying attention to everything we talked today about linking and reductions and things like that. Um, because if you speak so clearly with every single word, you're just never going to sound natural. It's just you can't do it. It's not possible. Okay. So that's the first thing I would recommend, depending on your goal, is maybe focus a little bit more on the reductions.
The women and the men.
Because it's like the woman and the man. It's very careful, right? The woman and the man.
The women and the men.
Okay. In general, I liked how you said woman.
The women.
Maybe it could be a little bit more reduced on the "w" part. It's a little bit heavy. It's like the "w" versus the "w," the woman.
And the men.
And the man. Again, you could get that "and" sound. I think that would be a good thing to kind of practice a bit. Man, man. Getting that "and," and. I know that's a tricky combination, but it is one that can be really helpful. There's not necessarily a whole lot of words that have that "an" combination. However, the words that do have them are very high frequency. Like man, plan. The words like that are pretty common. Okay.
And the men were the women.
I like that with. I thought that short eyed there sounded pretty good.
Men were
We're with could be even maybe a little bit lower, but it's not horrible. We're with.
the women.
But I would use that same sound on women. That same sound with women, and that's even an exercise you could do. Try saying with, then try saying women, with women, with women. See if you get that same sound. And, that's also a strategy you can use if you have a word that you're saying, but you found that the vowel is difficult, or you think you can pronounce the vowel, but then when you put it in a word, it changes. Some students have that experience too. What I would recommend is doing an exercise where you say the vowel sound, then say the word. It's like women, women, women. Okay, and that can also help to make sure that your vowel sound stays strong enough, because it's very easy to lose that. Okay, so just a note. Okay, we're with the women. Okay, man, we're with the women. Okay, women and the man, we're with the women. Let me play it again.
The women and the men were the women.
Yes, those would be my big suggestions. Taking a look at that short I sound on that last one, women. And also just trying to work a little bit on the linking, cutting down on your thought groups, cutting down on your pauses. I think those are some things you can do to immediately start sounding a little bit more natural. Okay, so definitely compare mine to yours. Like the woman and the man, we're with the women. The woman and the man, we're with the women. Also reducing your stresses, I think would be helpful there. Okay, but thank you for sending your audio. If anything's not clear, send me a message or put something in the chat. I cannot do this without you. I appreciate it. Okay, so we have some questions in the chat box really quick. Okay, more audio. That's great. Send them. Yes, send them. And a question from Denny. Do babies pick up on the placement right away as soon as the spark? Good question. Babies are really interesting because when a baby is born, they have the ability to hear and detect any sound from any language. I mean, that's why, if you have a baby that's born in Japan, they can understand all the sounds that are in Japanese. Baby born in the US, they can understand all the sounds that typically come in English and things like that. So what I would say is, I think it's kind of hard with baby speech because I mean, having a 3-year-old, I mean, the babies have a toddlers and kids, their register is just different, right? Like it's you can't always understand what a kid is saying, even if they only speak one language and you speak that language, because babies have like baby accents and stuff. So I don't. That's all kind of a hard question for me to answer. I would say that they can like detect it though, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, and over time, they naturally kind of stick with it. I mean, that's how babies are, right? It's survival, right? If you're a baby, I hate speaking for babies, but let's be honest. Like, if you're a baby, your job is to survive, right? So, you're trying to decide, okay, what information do I need? What information don't I need? So it's like, as a baby, you're listening to your parents and other people, and you'd be like, okay, these are the sounds that I'm hearing in my environment, so they're probably the sounds that I need to keep. The other sounds I don't really need to listen for anymore. So over time, they kind of refine it. So they lose that ability, quote unquote, to hear other sounds. But of course, as adults, you can learn to pick up on those sounds again. Okay, so if you're an adult learner, it's okay. It's not lost. You can learn sounds that don't exist in your first language. Okay. Yeah, child development and stuff is super interesting. By the way, like if you're an adult learner, there are actually advantages that you have over children that learning languages. Just a note. Um, I don't want to get into all of the research on that, but some of the research is, for instance, like grammar. Like if you're an adult that learns grammar versus if you're a kid that learns grammar, and let's say that you stop learning for like a year or 2 years, like you just stop. The kid stops and you stop. Well, if you were to take like a test like a year later, in general, you could expect the adult to outperform the kid. Um, Kids are thought to pick up things faster, but kids also lose things a lot faster. So adults tend to do better at retaining it. There's other advantages too that adult learners have that kids don't have. Just a note. Okay, so it has a grammar question. What's correct way to say this sentence? Hope she gets better soon. So that's does hope take the subjunctive? What I would say is that a lot of times with grammar, there's like prescriptive grammar and there's descriptive grammar. So it's like there's like the textbook stuff versus the stuff that people actually use. Um, and so like what I would say is that typically with hope, in terms of like what are you going to hear like out on the street, like people talking, people are going to use the indicative. They're not usually going to use the subjunctive with hope. Okay. So like you're going to see like hope she gets. That's your standard option. Okay. In terms of that's interesting. Typically with the subjunctive, the verbs that you 100% you're technically supposed to use the subjunctive with are going to be like recommend or like demand or suggest. Like for instance, like, oh, I recommend you go to the doctor. Or a better example, like I recommend he go to the doctor. I recommend he go to the doctor. So instead of saying I recommend he goes, it really should be he go, or I suggest he go instead of I suggest he goes. Again, you should use the subjunctive for that as well. Okay. Um, yes. So it's I would say for hope, I don't think you need to use it in English. I should put it like that. I think in English, you're more likely to. I can't think of a situation where you would use the subjunctive with hope. Okay, but I do realize that for other languages, especially my Romance language friends, specialmente Italiano, you will use the subjunctive with that. But in English, you're not. I think you could. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but you're really not likely to see it used. It's just a note on that. Okay, good question. Yeah, I mean, talking again about babies and language learning. I mean, they're trying to survive. You see what's around you, what people are using, and you're like, okay, this is important, so you stick with that information. Yeah, I think it's exactly what's happening. Okay. Reading and explaining the points. Yes. All these things. Short sentences, but yeah, a lot of information. Everything that we talk about in terms of the sentences that we're looking at today, these are things that, we're looking at sentences not with the, hey, this is what you do in this specific sentence. Everything that we're talking about today, these are things that you apply to other situations as well. Okay, so don't view these sentences that we're looking at in isolation. Just a note. Okay, so again, those are just some quick questions that we got. Let's move on. Next audio file.
The ghost is clothed in a rose-colored coat.
I like that. Rose-colored coat. I like that going up. A little bit unexpected because, again, it is a sentence. So in general, for a sentence, you would expect the intonation to fall. So instead of coat or coat. So I'd expect kind of a sharper fall there. But that's not necessarily wrong. And again, the sentence that we are looking at for this, the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Let's play that again.
The ghost is clothed in a rose-colored coat.
One thing I like about this is it does feel there's a lot of breath making it through. So I commend you on, in general, being able to kind of relax your throat. There's another channel that I saw they're making a video on placement. They say they have something really revolutionary about placement coming out. This, if you guys look up what's your channel? English language hacks. Trying to keep tabs on what other pronunciation channels are doing, and that's one thing. So that's a channel to take a look at if you want to see some other channels take a look at placement and things like that. But one thing I'm hearing for this sentence again is that it sounds really relaxed to me. For the most part.
Ghost is clothed.
Clothed. I do think how do I put this? I think the general placement is low and relaxed, but I do think sometimes it's getting a little bit tense. And I'll show you where.
The ghost.
Ghost. Go. It sounds like at the start of that O sound getting a little bit tense, as opposed to the end.
The ghost.
Ghost, as opposed to ghost. So I would say just try to keep it consistently low for the full word, not just for the last part. Ghost.
The ghost is clothed.
Was clothed versus was clothed. Okay, so I think what's happening is I think the placement's low, but I think sometimes the throat's getting a little bit tense. That's why you're hearing was clothed versus was clothed. Can you hear a difference between was clothed and was clothed? Can you hear a difference there? Just a little bit more open. Try to get more air through.
The ghost is clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Rose-colored coat. And again, rose-colored coat. Rose-colored coat. Just again, slightly more relaxed. I do think it's pretty low. But I do think even more air could maybe make it through.
Clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Rose-colored coat. Ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
The ghost is clothed in.
And I like that. I like that. That thought group. Okay, I think that's kind of the first unit. I'm hearing one major stress. Clothed. Ghost was clothed. Maybe a slight stress on ghost, but I don't think it's super heavy. So I like that. There's really one primary stress.
The ghost is clothed in a rose-colored coat.
And then that second part, in a rose-colored coat. Again, just a stress on coat, in a rose-colored coat. So I really like what you're doing on stress, just having two main ones, and I think that's good for this sentence. The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. So I would just say, yeah, my big comments for this would just be, see if you can open your throat up even a little bit more, even more air. Okay, so like instead of clo, more clo. Instead of go, more go. Okay, I think you're at the right spot in your throat. Just open up slightly more. Okay, those would be my big suggestions there. But thank you for sending your audio. As always, cannot do this without you. And if you have some other questions, be sure to leave them. I'll try to answer them in the future. All right, moving right along. Our next file here.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Play that again. I mean, that was you. Okay. I was trying to aim for clothed, then coat. Yeah, so really focusing on those. Cool.
The woman and the man were with the women.
I like this. I think in general, the placement's in a pretty good spot here. And again, the sentence that you're hearing is this one.
The woman and the man.
The woman and the man. The woman and the man. The woman and the man. This is certainly an option that you could have when saying this, to kind of putting some stress on woman. I wonder if you're actually putting the stress on and.
The woman and the man.
And the man. No, it's more on man. It's not the woman and the man. It's more the woman and the man. I would say I would maybe cut off the stress on women and again just put it more on man. But again, this is one option. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. The woman and the man.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Were with the women. Why did you drag out the were? He's like were with the women.
Men were with the women.
I would have included the were with the reductions and the linking a little bit more instead of separating them. Personally, see if you can hear that.
The men were with the women.
You know, and that can work. You know, if you're saying a sentence, you can have it where you have a little bit longer on the were. Especially like you're talking and you need a moment to think. The woman and the man were with the women. You know, that's a natural thing you could do is lengthen that word. But if you're not doing that, if you know what you're saying, you can add that to the linking. So instead of doing were with the woman, you do were with the women. Okay, just a note on that.
The woman and the man.
I'd also say how do I put this? Like it sounds like you're reading. It sounds like you're reading off of a page, which is fine. That's because that's what you're doing, right? So how do you make this sound more like as a part of a conversation as opposed to reading? Well, I think it comes down to the and.
The woman and the man.
Like that part right there with the and, because that makes it sound like a reading. It sounds like you're telling a story to like your kid or something like the woman and the man lived happily ever after, something like that. The woman and the man lived happily ever after, something like that. Whereas if this were an actual conversation, and probably isn't going to get that rising intonation, like and the man, sorry, and the man, the woman and the man, woman and the man.
The woman and the man
versus the woman and the man. Okay, so something like that.
Were with the women.
I would say, I want to hear it again.
Were with the women.
Maybe a little bit still on the short I sound. With the we versus with the we. Can you hear the difference between with the we versus with the we? It's like with the women. That's just a note on that. Let me hear it play that.
And the men were with the women.
So we're with the women versus were with the women. We're with the women. We're with the women.
Were with the women.
Yeah, so it's minor, but just trying to get that short I sound maybe a little bit lower. Because like the with the women. Okay. Again, I believe this is Marcos.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Versus the woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women. Okay. By the way, if these like reductions and things like that, if this is a tricky thing for you, definitely check out our most recent video where we did a whole video just on reductions. Just 10 minutes of just practicing reductions. I gave you some common examples with prepositions and the verb to be and pronouns and things like that. And it's just practicing reductions, trying to get used to them and things like that. So that's something that you feel that you struggle with. And I'll try to post a link to that in a moment. Then I would definitely encourage you, hey, check it out. Because reductions are extremely common in spoken English. But yeah, thank you for sending your audio file. I, again, can't do this without you. Our next file here.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. The woman and the man.
Squeezing in two in one file. I see what you're doing. I see you. Let's listen to that again.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Very tense. It's like ghost, coat. It's like versus ghost, clothed, rose-colored coat. It's like, oh. It's more, oh. Play again.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
In terms of the rhythm, I think the rhythm is fine. You're kind of doing what we predicted at the start with like 4 stresses with like ghost, clothed, rose, coat. You're really, really hitting those hard. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I would say as an experiment, see if you can reduce that from 4 stresses to 2.
The ghost was...
So say ghost, more ghost.
Was clothed.
I say clothed, more clothed.
In a rose.
Rose. You did kind of reduce the rose there a little bit. You could probably reduce it even more. Rose-colored.
Rose-colored coat.
Watch out for your schwa. The schwa, it attacked you.
coat.
But play again.
Rose-colored.
Collared versus colored. Hear a difference in collared versus colored. Colored. Just try and get that a little bit lower.
Rose-colored.
Rose-colored versus rose-colored. Rose-colored. Okay. And it doesn't need to be so punchy. You know, you're like beating me like colored. It doesn't have to be quite so strong.
Colored.
Back it up a little bit more.
Closed in a rose-colored coat.
Rose-colored coat versus rose-colored coat. Rose-colored coat. Notice that just lets you kind of flow a little bit more, right? Rose-colored coat. Okay. The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Let's have the wrong sentence showing right now. So let me play that part again so you can compare.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Actually, I think there's some linking going on too, which is great.
The ghost was clothed in a
Yeah, I like how you're joining your. So you do have more thought groups than in general. I would. Again, you have 4 thought groups, which again isn't a problem. But I do think you're joining your thought groups together pretty well. Like I'm not hearing like pauses, right? The ghost was clothed. You know, I'm not hearing that. You do allow this to flow, which is great.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Okay, so even like clothed in us, so you know you had that linking there. Like the ghost was clothed, you know, is never stopping for breath, which is great. I really like that aspect of it. Okay. One more time, and I'll play theirs and show you mine.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Versus the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Okay. And they gave me a second sentence, so we can take a look at that.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Okay. Sounds very kind of like a Russian type. Because like women versus women. Man, we're with the women. We're with the women. Not sure if you're a Russian speaker or not, but it kind of has some tendencies of Russian.
The woman and the man were...
Man versus man. Man. This at and the end sound. I know it's a tricky combination, but I definitely think it's one worth reviewing just because it is so common. Man. And in fact, you know, we have a video that does talk about that. One sec. It's a bit of an old one. But if you go to my channel, why didn't it? Ugh. Go to my channel and you type in like nasals in the search. You can see that. Yeah, this is going to be the second one here, how to pronounce man, hand. Bit of an older video, but I think it's going to be helpful for those and combinations right here. Okay, so I would definitely say take a look at that because I think it'll be helpful. And because you're just going to have a tendency to make them so tense, like and versus and, way more breath.
The woman and the man were...
I like how you said woman. I thought that sounded pretty good.
Coat. The woman and the man were with the women.
And then women. Again, your women super strong. It's like women versus women. Women.
Were with the women.
So the women or women. We're with the women. Okay. So one more time on that. The woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women.
Coat. The woman and the man were with the women.
I would also say you could probably reduce the were. Kind of doing what we saw earlier with Marcus's audio. So instead of were with the women, you could do were with the women. See if you could do that little phrase there. We're with the. Just kind of say that to yourself if you're with me right now. We're with the. Things like that. Okay. Yep. So those are the things I would pay attention to in that sentence. If anything's not clear, send me a message or leave a comment or be angry with me silently. All those things are fine, but thank you for sending your audio. I do appreciate it. All right, next one here.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Oh man, I need to turn up my bass. Let's get this house thumping, yo. We got that deep voice.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Was this Ed? It sounds like Ed. Maybe someone else though.
The woman and the man were with the women.
I like your placement. I mean, I'm hearing lots of breath. It feels very open to me.
The woman and the man.
Hear that? Man. It's like really turn up your bass, like man. Like you don't need like a vocal fry. It doesn't even be like man. It's not even a vocal fry. It's just cracking. You don't need to do it like that, but Yeah, I like what you're doing there on the man. I think another part where people get a little stuck on man. Exactly. I need to. I need a subwoofer. I need to change my studio like around when I'm working because got a good DJ voice. You could be on the radio with this. um, but losing my mouse.
The woman and the man.
I like the N. Like it's that N is great. Yeah. I really like that N sound because I think when people say man, part of the reason it sounds tense for a lot of people isn't just because of the A sound, it's also because of the N, because they're seeing like like man versus man. Finishing with that low placement can be really helpful with that sound. And so we're trying to keep it low. Okay. I like this I only just what hits me, you know. Try lower placement, end up lowering the pitch. Yeah, I mean, I think that in general that's kind of what you find. Now it's not necessary that when you lower the placement you lower the pitch. That doesn't necessarily happen. Okay. Man, this okay. Cool. That doesn't necessarily have to happen, but it's super common. You know, that I even have a video about that, right? Where one trick, quote unquote, to sound more natural American English is lowering your pitch a bit. What you'll find is that in general, in American English, you have a lower pitch than you do in your first language. Not always true. It doesn't have to be true, but a lot of people do find that. And this is true, by the way, for men, and it's also true for women. Okay. So if you're one of my female viewers, great to have you here. You want to and it's great to have my guys too, by the way. But if you're one of my female viewers and you're like, I don't want to sound like a man or things like that, or if you're like, I don't want to sound like a man or things like that, what I would say is that even if you speak with a lower pitch, you're still not going to sound unnatural in American English because men are still going to go deeper than you. Men have a lower, it's biology. Men have a lower larynx than you do. So what's low for you may be high for other people. I was actually talking with another student about a similar thing. If you guys are familiar with the, there's the American actor, and comedian Chris Tucker, or also Chris Rock is another one too. You listen to them and you're like, oh wow, it sounds like their placement's really high. These are men. So I had a student ask me, do these guys, do they have high placement? And what I would say is, they do have a higher pitch. They may have a higher pitch than a lot of other men do, but that doesn't mean that that their placement is low. What's low for them biologically might be high for you. If your larynx is lower. Okay. So is something you're going to see in American English again is that, for whether you're a guy, whether you're a girl, whether you're deciding, your placement's going to be lower than it is for other people. Just to note. Okay. And that's in your first language, and that's okay. Why was I talking about that? I'm gonna go back to our audio. I forgot where I went on that tangent on. You guys always distracting me with these weird tangents about pronunciation. What are you doing to me?
The woman and the man. Or
I would say maybe you're overstressing man just a little bit. You could have cut that off like a couple milliseconds ago.
the woman and the man.
It's like, man, I didn't even finish. It's still going. I stopped it. It was like a second.
Or with
Man, we're with the. I do like you're kind of linking that man, that N on man with the word, which is cool. And that's good.
the woman and the man. Or with the women.
Maybe a little bit on the short I on with.
Or with the women.
With the, because I mean with the versus with the. I would just say maybe try to get that short I. Just a little, just a smidge. Good smidge. If you don't know what a smidge is, try to incorporate that into your daily English vocabulary for just like a little bit, like a smidge. Just a smidge, lower it a smidge.
And or with the women.
With the women, or with the. I want to hear the with the.
With the women.
With the. We're with the. So you kind of have like this, kind of this held sound with, like with and then you have the with the. I would try to make it a little smoother because if you have like the with the
We're with the women.
with the it sounds choppy, right? We're with the women. We're with the women versus with the women. With the women. It just may just be my own personal preference, but I kind of like having it a little bit smoother. So instead of with the women or with the women, with the women. But that may just be my own personal preference coming in. So take that with a grain of salt. Okay, but I would try to smooth that slightly. All right, so one more time on that sentence. And again, if you're just joining us, this is the sentence we're looking at. The woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women.
The woman and the man were with the women.
I'd also say, again, of another minor point, you have the kind of this rising intonation on woman.
The woman and
The woman and the. So this is something that, again, is going to kind of give it a quality like you're reading as opposed to talking. Like I can't think of a situation when you're talking where you would say like the woman and the man. It sounds like you're telling a story. Okay. Versus the woman and the man. That sounds a little bit more conversation, things that you would capture in speaking. Just a note on that. But I hope that's helpful. Thank you so much to Emmanuel for sending that. Can't do this without you. Emmanuel, by the way, recently joined us. He had won the Wednesday giveaway. So he joined us in our pronunciation Telegram group, which again is basically every day you send in audio files just like today, and you get feedback on your pronunciation and things like that. So again, if you're enjoying what we're doing right now, you can get this same feedback for yourself every single day of the week. Again, it's at patreon.com/FluentAmerican, and you can select the Telegram group option. Just put on that. All right, moving right along for our next one. Let's see which one they're giving us, or both.
The woman and the man were with the women.
We are in officially the base hour of our program. Everyone's such deep voices.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Okay. So I think you have two thought groups. You just have you're really extending them.
The woman and the man.
It's kind of that part, like woman. You kind of have a pause after woman, but I think you're stressing more man.
The woman and the man.
Woman and the man. I would reduce that pause between woman and the woman and the man. The woman and the man. I think that would have helped make it sound just a little bit more natural instead of being the woman and the man, or the woman and the man.
The woman and the man.
Also, you could have a little bit more linking with the and the. So instead of and the, more and the. Notice that D is going to kind of disappear in a way. It's going to kind of melt into the TH. It's like and the.
The woman and the man.
And the man. That's kind of like and the man versus and the man. And the man. I would just work on that reduction pattern a little bit. And the man. And the man.
Were with the women.
So I did first person in a little while, kind of reduce that word a little bit, which is great.
Were with the women.
We're with the, again, I would connect that part. We're with the, just practice your reductions a little bit. I would join those more. Were with the. Were with the
women.
And again, short I sound as we've seen so often today. So again, it's not women, it's more women, short I sound. Again, tricks for that short I, sides of your tongue, touching your top teeth, get some contact, no blood, don't bite yourself. Okay, just a little bit of contact with your top teeth. Okay, so you can push gently, but no blood. I don't want people going to the hospital because they bit their tongues and they say, but my English teacher told me to do this. As you get 10 stitches on your tongue. I don't want
Were with the women.
We're with the women. We're with the women. Okay. So worry about that short I sound. So those are probably my big things is try to practice some of those reductions that I just mentioned and watch out for that short I on women. We're with the women.
The woman and the man were with the women.
The woman and the man were with the women. Actually, I want to hear man again.
The woman and the man.
Man. I think, John, that sounds okay. I kind of like that, man. Cool. All right. But again, those are my suggestions for that file. If you have questions, you can leave a comment or post in the chat box as I keep one eye on it at all times. But thank you for sending that. Can't do this without you. Next file, 2 seconds. How they doing this?
The woman and the man were with the women.
She flew through that. Okay.
The woman and the man were with the women.
I'm gonna play that one more time.
The woman and the man were with the women.
The woman and the man, the woman and the man. So you're putting a lot of emphasis on that woman. The woman and the man.
The woman and the man.
The woman and the man. Which is interesting. You can do that. It all depends on context, right? The context always is going to determine, what word are you stressing? What word aren't you? You're putting a lot of weight on woman. The woman and the man versus the woman and the man. Neither is wrong. It depends on context. In a general situation where there is no context, as if that could exist, you would expect the stress to fall more on man because it's the last word of your thought group, the woman and the man. But maybe you want to emphasize the woman and the man.
The woman and the man were with the
woman and the man. Sounds, again, it has that kind of quality like you're reading off the page, which again is fine because that's you are. But if you want to make it sound a little bit more conversational, like what you would hear in actual speech, instead of being like the woman and the man, kind of like this, kind of like a sing-song quality to it. The woman and the man. If you're stressing woman, you'd probably make it strong, like the woman and the man. No, the woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women. Something like that. If you want to make that sound a little bit more natural.
The woman and the man were
a little bit tense on man. It's like man versus man. I would say especially that and sound, try and get that a little lower, more open, more air. So again, man versus man. So you can hear that. Man versus man.
With the women.
We're with the. And again, on women, we got a little bit of that long I sound. So like women versus women. We're with the women.
With the women.
Yes, just get a little bit more short I sound on that. We're with the women. One last time on that. The woman and the man were with the women. Or if we're doing the pattern more like yours, the woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women.
The woman and the man were with the women.
And just some suggestions there. Okay. If anything's not clear, be sure to let me know. But thank you for sending your audio. I cannot do this without you. Moving right along. Let's see which one they chose for this one.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Very punchy. The dun, 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 dun. Right?
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Sounds like you're giving me a rap song. Like it's got a little rhythm to you, which is cool, but maybe a little bit overstressed.
The ghost was clothed.
The ghost was clothed versus the ghost was clothed. Ghost was clothed. So I would do two suggestions. I would take off your first stress. Okay, so I would take off the ghost. The ghost was clothed. Do more. The ghost was clothed. Ghost was clothed. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to be so punchy. The ghost was clothed. More. The ghost was clothed. Ghost was clothed. And I think that when people are thinking about stress, I think they English is stress time and things like that. So stress is important. But you can also overdo it a bit, or you can exaggerate it, which is great if you're like an actor or someone on a stage. But and your sentence doesn't have to be quite so heavy. Okay, the ghost was clothed. So one thing with English is, what I tell people is like American English, specifically American English, is super relaxed. If you ever feel things are getting tense when you're talking, or you feel like you're forcing out air, something's probably not quite right. It's super relaxed. Instead of like pushing out air, I like to think of it more as releasing. English is like a bird in a cage, and you've decided you want your bird to be free. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's like, instead of like shoving the bird out of the cage, like, no, you open the cage up, and then you say, if you love me, I have to let you go, or things like that, right? So you just gently release the bird out into the wild. Okay, so you don't want to like force it out. It's not so punchy. Okay. The question from Denny's, no one's singing today. What we got? Does this count? Kind of like we got some hot fire here.
The ghost was clothed.
The ghost was clothed. Like, got some rhythm, got some meter, got some bars. Ghost was clothed.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Very punchy again on the rose. In the rose-colored coat versus in a rose-colored coat. in a rose-colored coat. So again, it's just kind of a little bit gentler on your stressed words. So instead of rose-colored coat or rose-colored coat, rose-colored coat. Another thing that you want to watch out for with your with stressed words.
Rose-colored coat.
I don't hear it happening here. I think your pitches are actually pretty good. So I think my big comment on stresses would just be just making them a little bit weaker. Zobeda, I believe we have not gotten to your audio yet, but I'm glad you can make it back. Okay, Hassan, great to see you. Glad you can make it. So again, we have not gotten to your audio, I don't believe yet. Ghost was clothed with rose-colored coat. So just one thing you want to watch out for stress words. Sometimes people exaggerate by raising the pitch too high. Like the ghost was clothed, like doing something like that, where your pitches are just so disconnected from the rest of your sentence. So just also watch out for that as well. Okay, just a note, but I don't see that happening here. Okay, but one more time on that. So let's take a listen.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat versus the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Just be a little gentler with your stress. Thank you for sending your audio. I do appreciate it. Next one here.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Okay, let me hear it again.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Okay, got a little bit of some vocal fry going on. That's how you're hearing, like, let me pull it up.
The ghost.
Do you hear that, like, the, and I think, so what's happening is I think that you're aware that you want to keep things relaxed, which is great. So you're letting in as much air as possible. It's a tricky thing with the relaxation because if you over relax it, what happens is you end up kind of like with this kind of vocal fry sound.
The ghost.
The ghost versus the ghost. Okay. So you can be a little bit firmer, just a little bit. I'm always kind of hesitant to say that because you don't want to make it too tense. Like the ghost. It's not the, but it's also not the. It's in between. It's like the. Can you hear a difference between the and the? Okay. You want that last one because it's kind of like in the middle. Okay. So not too relaxed, but also not too tense. Okay. The. And that's kind of going to be true for kind of this whole sentence because I think right now we're kind of entering that vocal fry territory. And there's nothing wrong with a vocal fry. I actually have a video that kind of talks about it lightly. It's not the main subject, but vocal fries, that sound where you can hear here.
The ghost,
kind of like that. Nothing wrong with vocal fries. There's actually kind of a growing usage among growing usage of vocal fries, especially among women, especially on the west coast of North America. But it's not necessary to use a vocal fry. Or you can say it's not necessary to use a vocal fry. Okay. Don't see it as often among men. Usually something you see more among women. Okay. But men obviously can do it as well.
the ghost was clothed.
Watch out for that O sound on close. So it's not claw. It's more clo. Clo. Oh. So it's not claw. It's clo. I think that you want to start with the back of your tongue a little bit higher because right now it sounds a little bit low. You're getting like this claw versus clo. Okay, just a note on that.
In a rose-colored coat.
Rose-colored coat. Very dramatic reading. I can see in the right situation. I can see this being really effective.
Rose-colored coat.
Like rose-colored coat. You're putting a lot of stress on colored.
In a rose-colored coat.
So what you just did, you did rose-colored coat. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but rose-colored coat. So you raised the pitch on colored. And by doing that, what is the effect of raising the pitch there? You make it sound stressed. Okay. So you have this 3-word group. You have rose, adjective, colored, adjective, coat. Okay. Noun. And typically when you have these like 3-word group situations like adjective, adjective, noun, or adverb, adjective, noun, situations like that, you get a little bit of stress on the first word and then heavier stress on the last word. So like you would expect it to be like rose-colored coat, rose-colored coat. where your middle word would actually lower in pitch. But you're kind of doing the opposite, so it's adding some stress on the colored, which could be, it's a little bit of an unnatural pattern. Your listener probably wouldn't be expecting that.
In a rose-colored coat.
Okay, so unless you want to give extra weight to colored, like it's a rose-colored coat, not a rose fabric coat, or like a rose pleated coat. It's a rose-colored coat. So that would be a situation where you would want to stress colored, but in general, I don't think that's not really what this sentence is asking for, I would say. Okay, so to be my big suggestions there, especially with regards to the vocal fry, and also with regards to stress. So one more time, the ghost was clothed. The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Super dramatic reading. In English, if you want to make anything sound dramatic, or let me rephrase. In English, if you want to make anything sound dramatic, adds pauses and lower your pitch. Just automatically makes anything sound so much more dramatic and serious. Kind of like what Morgan Freeman does to a degree. For my Morgan fans out there. But thank you for sharing your audio. I do appreciate it. Let's listen to our next one.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Oh my gosh, this is like the exact opposite of that one.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
It's like, the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Oh my gosh. Really move through this one.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Ghost was clothed in a rose. I want to hear your thought groups.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Ghost was clothed in a... I think you have 2, maybe 3. Ghost was clothed in a rose. I think you have 2. I think you have a thought group. I think your thought group breaks after clothed, which is again where I would personally do it. You're putting a lot of stress on ghost as opposed to clothed.
The ghost was clothed in a...
The ghost was clothed. The ghost was clothed.
The ghost was clothed.
Ghost was clothed. Which is fine. In general, in English, subjects aren't going to receive the heaviest stress. Just because a large part of the reason why is just because it comes so early in your thought group. And it's not so often that one of the first words in your thought group is going to get received stress. It can happen. Nothing wrong if it does. But I would say it's a little bit less frequent. I have the same problem. My wife doesn't understand me, and I don't understand me either. So I told you I'm with you. No, I think you're actually pretty. I understand what you're saying here. I don't have an issue understanding it. Although what I would say, oh no. Question about Boomhauer. Let's see how we do on time. Julian, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. He gets really Nightbot gets a little aggressive sometimes. Let me put that back up. What else can we Rameza says the mic. Yeah, Z, I wouldn't be opposed. I think finding a new mic would be helpful. Because your mic does pick up a lot of background. I don't know what your accessibility to finding other mics would be in the future, but it might be something to look into.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Yeah, so your sentence is very front-loaded in terms of stress. Like your stresses in your first half of your sentence are heavier than your stresses in the second half. And again, that's not necessarily a problem, but it does affect. Compared, to how I read it and how other people have read this sentence, it's going to sound a little different. But again, it's not necessarily a problem. It depends on the situation.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
In a rose-colored coat. I think, based on what I'm hearing, I think your placement for those O sounds on rose-colored coat is actually pretty good.
In a rose-colored coat.
Rose-colored coat, rose-colored coat. I would maybe, again, put more stress on coat than on rose. And it seems to me you kind of did the opposite.
In a rose-colored coat.
It's like rose-colored coat versus rose-colored coat. So I would maybe put the more stress on coat, personally. Just a note on that. Yeah, so I think, in general, you're getting the placement, though.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Yeah, I would say ghost and clothed to me sound like they have a slightly different placement than rose and coat. And I wonder if that's because, again, the stresses are coming off a lot heavier. It sounds like you're kind of punching them a little bit harder. And I wonder if that's also causing you to make the sounds a little bit tenser. In general, I like the quality of the O sound a little bit more on rose and coat. Okay, but again, some of that could just be the microphone.
The ghost was closed in a rose colored coat.
Okay, but those are my main comments for that. So again, I would read this as the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
The ghost was closed in a rose colored coat.
But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. I hope that is helpful. Okay. Julian, thanks for stopping by. It'd be great to know how you found the channel. I'm glad you can make it to the stream as well. Okay. And thanks for the kind words about placement. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big proponent of placement. You know, it's not something that I used a lot of my students for a while, but then, I was able to get more information about it. And in all honesty, I think it's, if you only could study one thing to make yourself sound more natural in American English, you could choose worse than placement. Placement's you're able to keep things low and relaxed. It's going to have a pretty dramatic impact on how you sound. Yeah, and I do think that's true. Okay. So, Beta, I hope that's helpful for that one. I think the next one may be from you as well, but let's take a look and see. Thank you for sending that. So, next one.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Okay. I'll be honest, if I didn't know the sentence, I feel like I would need to listen to this a couple of times to really know what was being said. And why is that?
The woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man were with the women.
The woman and the man. Okay, so one thing is that so I think you're stressing man more than you're stressing women, which is good. But and I'm guessing that because it sounds to me like it's a higher pitch.
The woman and the man were with.
But you're not giving it time to breathe. You're going right into that word. Man were. That's kind of how you're doing it. The woman and the man were. So stressed words, you can link them with the next part. That's not a problem. But make sure that they have had enough time to breathe first. I think if you had held man just like 2 milliseconds longer, that would have helped a lot with clarity.
The woman and the man were with.
It's like man were. Look, the were is almost stronger than man.
Woman and the man were.
Man were. You hear that? Man were versus man were. So I think you kind of did the opposite of what would have been a little bit more helpful from a listener's perspective. Okay, lengthening man would have been really helpful there.
The woman and the man were with the women.
A little bit on that short I sound with the too.
The man were with the women.
With the versus with the. So just a little bit on that short I sound, just getting a little lower. So it's not with them or with the. The woman and the man were with the women. But I think the big thing for this sentence, how could you get it sound more natural? Get man to stand out a little bit more. Because right now it's kind of getting swallowed up. It's like a tiny fish in words, like this giant whale, and it's just kind of getting consumed. It should be the other way around. Let the tiny fish beat the whale. If that makes sense. You want the man to stand out more. And I think that'll be really helpful for you. Okay, but one more time for that. The woman and the man were with the women.
The woman and the man were with the women.
And those would be my thoughts for that. Okay. All right, and I hope that is helpful. Thank you for sending your audios, Beta. I really appreciate it. Hello to Sasa. Sasa. I imagine I see that stress on the A, so I imagine it's Sasa. But my Portuguese is horrible. You guys have heard my Portuguese, or a lot of you have, if you saw me do that pronunciation lesson I took for Rod. If you're looking for another English teacher to check out, we mentioned a couple channels today, but another English channel you may be interested in is Rod the English teacher. I think he dropped the Brazilian from his name, Rod the English. So Beta offers her defense. Dum dum dum. I wanted to focus on women. Interesting. Do I still have the audio up? Did I erase it?
The woman and the man were with the women.
Yeah. I think women does come off as your main stress words. I didn't care about the man and the woman. I just like outside of context, like what is happening? I didn't care about I do think that's coming across. But I mean, look, if you have a thought group, a thought group's going to have at least one word a thought group's going to have one word that's heavy stressed, right? So you can't just take it off completely, unless you're trying to say this is just one thought group. Yeah. I think I understand your goal, but I think I had the sacrifice of a little bit of comprehensibility. It made the sentence a little bit unclear in the beginning. Okay. All about that equality. Get some. Men and women. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next file. Z, thank you so much for sending that. By the way, it's not. Let me actually take a look. Let's see how many. Am I missing a lot of people's audio files? Let's take a look. Oh wow, it's we got some more files coming in. Okay, from a range of places. Turkey. Hassan checking in from the U.S. Saw Hassan already in India. Cool. I think I went up to Kate's. Kate, are you here? We're doing a quick roll call. Kate, are you here? You can say present. Let me know if you're here, Kate. Did we do your audio already? I forget. Okay, I think I'm going to have to close all of our audios, though. If you have not sent in an audio file, I am sorry, but I think I'm going to have to shut us off because we have so many files to get through. Okay. So I think we've gotten enough. Okay. Those here things from Z. TH sounds also hard for me now that both the THs are close with the link them together. What tends to happen with THs like with the, or like for instance, like with, what I see with a lot of students with is that, it's really interesting. Like part of my pronunciation test, like the first day, if you take one of my classes is we do a pronunciation test first. And during that pronunciation test, we look at all different sounds. In fact, I can even show you what does our pronunciation test look like? If I take a pronunciation class with Jeff, what does that even look like? So what we do is we take this beautiful thing, which I made some time ago, and we start off going up through consonant sounds, and then we take a look at your vowel sounds. So this is what we do on the first day, and you're gonna see. We look at voiceless THs. And I always find this such an interesting part of the test because everyone, when they do this, they always do like with, and things like that, which I always find interesting because with is actually a voiceless TH, but all my students are doing like with, but it should be with. So just a note about that. It tends to be voiceless, but I will say that if with is followed by a voice sound, sometimes that TH gets affected. So for instance, when you're saying with the, if you just use a voice TH on that, the TH on the kind of just consumes the voiceless quality of the with. So that's, if you find that it helps you to say with the and just keep it voiced, that's fine. Link them together. Do that. Okay. You're going to see this other types of sounds too. Like if you say like is so, is that Z sound and then so. Do a real quick like Z sound, then let it kind of transition to an S. It's like is so, like situations like that. So the sounds around a sound can have an impact on each other. Okay. Then he asks the important questions, right? How do you take a class? Well, you can go to fluentamerican.com. Okay. I can actually show you what that looks like. So that's just some things I'd like to show you really quick while you're there. By the way, you're going to see we have speaking group classes. You want to practice your speaking with me? Oh, no, our merch shop. I got to fix that. It always drops down there. If you want a t-shirt or a hat, you got those. So we have a speaking group class, so you can click this. So again, if you want to practice your speaking, it's a 30-minute class. It's limited to 4 students, and it's with me. As we talk, I make a Google Doc with like corrections for grammar and pronunciation and stuff like that. And then I send that to you after class. I also make an MP3 file of some pronunciation things from our class. So if you want to be in our next one, it's Saturdays, 9:30 a.m. New York time. So it'd be great to have you for that. But if you just want a normal one-on-one class, you can see this book a class option. You can just click the picture and then you'll have the opportunity to schedule. Okay. You can see that there. And it also adjusts for your time zone. Just some notes on that. Anyways, was I saying something else? I always feel like I was saying something and then I get distracted. I'm sorry, guys. Anyways, I have 2 of our original audios to look at, and then we will move on to see those additional files that were sent to me by my late friends. 9:30 a.m. EST. So if you're in Italy, that would be, well, like around 13:30. Okay, so just a note about that. Around 3:30 in the afternoon. Check your time zone because I might be off by an hour or so. Okay, but 9:30 a.m. EST. That's like New York time. We just say voice placement is the same for all existing American accents. I'm always hesitant to use like every and all and things like that. That's a word that always makes me nervous. As I just use always, right? It always makes me nervous. But in general, I try to stay away from those kinds of like exclusive type words. I would put it like this, kind of like a more standard standard pronunciation. Like standard American English is going to have a lower placement. Okay. Yeah, so in general, standard American English is going to be low in the throat and relaxed. Okay, you can always probably find exceptions and things like that. But in general, if you, let's say you want to go to the U.S. and you want to hide yourself, you don't want people to know where you're from. Well, just kind of speaking low in your throat and things like that can be super helpful in general. Okay, our next audio file. Let's see what Look at that. Gotcha. Look at you spelling that with the TCHA. Look at you, Denny. Look at you. Let's see what you're doing. Que affordable que say, huh?
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
How carefully we speak. Oh, wow.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
What happened on colored? Listen to that.
Colored coat.
It's like color. I mean, I think maybe we were, I don't know if we were kind of thinking about like a dark L on colored, and things like that. Danny, I don't mind at all. Do it. You know, it's not even, I wouldn't even say gotcha is slang. Gotcha is linking and reductions. You know, so it's not even slang. Slang would be something like we said, like word or something like that. Like, oh, word. That would be more slang. Just notice word choice can cause misunderstandings. Yeah, it can. Of course. You know, that's actually, I'm glad you brought up that point about word choice and misunderstandings and things, because the reality is that in English is that, or any language, you know, no 2 words have exactly the same meaning. You know, every word has slightly different meanings, which can be really tricky if you're using like synonyms and things like that. You know, like big has a slightly different meaning than like huge, which has a slightly different meaning than like enormous. They all mean that something's very big, but you know, they have different associations that come with them. So it's and that's the hard part of language learning, is because you don't have the context. You can learn the vocab. You're like, okay, I know big, I know huge, I know enormous, but you don't know exactly when do I use which one and what comes what's the association with which one, with each of them. You know, so that can be a really big problem with learning languages. My biggest suggestion when you're learning vocab is don't just learn a word by itself. Try to learn a word as well as other words that go with it. It's like if you're learning a noun, try to maybe find 2 or 3 verbs that go with that noun. Try to find 2 or 3 adjectives that go with that noun. Or for instance, if you're learning an adjective, try to find 2 or 3 nouns that it commonly goes with and things like that. And you can actually use, I know we'll talk about these pronunciation files in a moment, but you can actually use Google to help you with this. So for instance, let's say like a big, and then you can see, just like Google tell you what comes next. So I'm seeing like a big, thank you, a big paragraph, a big dog, a big heart. Now, some of these are going to be more common than others, but you can start getting an idea, you know, what's the most common. And then you could even just start typing in letters like a big A, a big amount, a big advantage, a big animal. Okay, cool. What comes up with B? It's like a big band, a big bear, a big bang theory, of course. C, a big country, a big cat, a big car. So, you know, just doing that, I'm already getting an idea of times where I can use, for instance, big and things like that. But Google is your best friend. Google is nothing but research, free research. Good vibes. Yeah. Yeah. I hope you were enjoying yourself. Alejandra, thank you. You know what? Thank you, Alejandra. I appreciate that. I enjoy doing this with you guys. And again, I can't do this without you. If you don't send me audio, I can't give you feedback. So I appreciate you being willing to share your files. All right, let's listen to this again.
The ghost was clothed.
Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to tell you is pick up the pace. Why are we being so dramatic? Why are we doing like Shakespeare?
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Colored. I think colored, it'll be helpful for you to pronounce it with a lighter L. It's like colored. There's nothing wrong with making contact with the top of your mouth for that L. Colored. You can say it like that and it's perfectly fine. As you get more comfortable with it, then you can experiment with more dark L type sounds like colored. So like when I'm saying that, I'm actually keeping the tip of my tongue down. Colored. But again, there's nothing wrong with pronouncing a light L for that. Yo, dog. How's it going? Your picture is like perfect for everything with your name and what you wrote. That's great. Yeah, so I would say for colored, yeah, that word is coming off as really muffled.
Or coat.
It's like color.
Rose-colored.
Color is very tense. It's very closed off. Okay, try to get a little more relaxed, a little more open. Colored. Okay.
Coat.
Then coat. Otherwise, I think your stresses are good.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
And I think besides colored, in general, your placement's okay. Again, it's relaxed and open for the most part. But just I would work on colored. Try to get that a little clearer. It's just a note about that. Just note my son is running through my house. He may try to break into my office and take me away. Things like that. Yeah, but those would be my big suggestions on this. Marcos, thank you for sending that. Take a listen to this file. Okay, and we are going to have to break into a lightning round very soon. It's about 20 minutes, so I'm going to have to head out. Let's listen to this next file, though. 12 seconds? What you sending me? What are you sending me? I said one file. It's one of these sentences taking you it's taking you 12 seconds to read. We may have some other things going on besides pronunciation that we need to worry about. Hang on.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Okay, so I'm guessing you could send me 2 files unless there's a lot of dead space. But let's listen to this again. Dramatic opening too, right? All that.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Okay, 2 things here. Your placement's really high intense. You're like, let me hear it again.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. You're very up here, like oh versus oh. Hear a difference? Okay, so that's the very first thing. If you're having these tense sounds, let's try to get it lower. So, for instance, I'm going to start with that O sound high and then try to lower it. It's like oh. So what I'm doing is, again, just opening up the throat more to let through more air, and I'm sending it down. Okay, so I would really try to practice doing exercises like that. Check out our videos on placement because they have other examples that you can go through and use. Because right now you're really high and you're really tense. Okay, and that's changing your whole sentence, right?
The ghost
was clothed
in a rose.
Rose is probably your most relaxed word, but even that I would like to get a little bit more relaxed.
Colored coat.
And then colored.
A rose-colored.
Okay, doing a little bit too much. Colored, 2 syllables. schwa sound, k, and then you have this sound, colored, colored, rose colored, colored. So it's not ka, it's more k. Schwa sound like in fun or does or but. It's like It's just a note on that. Rose colored. Okay, rose colored code. Okay. Things there.
It's coat.
Okay, so one more time on that. The ghost was clothed in a rose colored coat.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Yes, so those would be the big things that I would work on. As you get more comfortable with that, you can start worrying about other things too, like for instance, voiced final sounds, like for instance, clothed, making sure that you stay voiced on that for the entire time. The. So it's not st, it's more the, just a note. All right, let's take a listen to the second part of this.
Colored coat. The woman and the man were with the women.
Okay, and again, so kind of similar things about placement. So a little bit tense and high.
It's coat. The woman.
Woman, into woman. I think another thing too is that you're kind of giving equal weight to every syllable. So right, you're doing like woman. Let me play again.
The woman.
Woman versus woman. The wa part is your stress. That should be the part that you're holding longer. Okay, the men can be said faster and more reduced. The woman.
The woman and the man.
In the man versus in the man. That and you can pick up the pace more. It's reduced. None of these words is stressed. Okay. So instead of the woman and the man, it's more the woman and the man. Woman and the man. Can you hear a difference between mine and yours a little bit there? Okay, so pick up your pace on your reduced words. They don't have to be held as long.
Were with the women.
With the women was more versus with the women. Okay, short I sounds. If you're looking for a vowel sound to study, also that short I. So it's not with the, it's more with the. It's not women, it's more women. Okay, with the women versus with the women. Okay, so those would be the big things I would point out there. So again, the woman and the man were with the woman and the man were with the women.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Okay, so just some notes on that. Okay, if anything if anything there is not clear, be sure to let me know. But thank you so much for sharing your audio with me. I cannot do this without you. It was great to hear it. Please send more in the future. Okay. Look at the yeah, I mean it's the joys of pronunciation. You know, when you're practicing pronunciation, you know, you have to be willing to experiment, play, make weird noises. Because what I always tell my students when they take pronunciation classes is like, look, it should feel weird. It should feel uncomfortable. Because if it's not, then that means you're probably doing what you've always been doing. And while there's nothing wrong with doing what you've always been doing, but if you're studying pronunciation, then you probably are trying to change, right? So yeah, you don't want it to be comfortable. You want it to feel a little strange. Okay, I think that was our last original file. I'm going to give you guys back your screen just for a moment as I do some scouting. I need to see these other files that you guys have sent me. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Where did we leave off? Check and see. Duffy, that was you? We did reverse order. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Send more audio files in the future, please. Okay. I think, Duffy, what I would say is you seem very, you're concentrating on sounding so clear. And this is not just for you. This is for everybody. I think for a lot of you, if you're watching these videos, I don't think your issue is clarity. I think, if anything, clarity is what's holding you back. You have to be willing to try something. You have to be willing to be a little bit less clear if your goal is to sound natural. Clarity is what is stopping you from sounding natural, I think, for a lot of people. I don't know the I'm guessing. Yeah, so like a word, for instance, right, easy example, like a word like let's use like was. That would be a word with a stress schwa sound. Okay. Was. Or for instance, like but or does or fun. Was, but, does, fun. Those are all examples of those schwa sounds. Okay. Good question there. All right. Like I said, I need to listen to files really quick. Give me a moment, guys. I appreciate your patience as we do some scouting. Okay, we looked at that one already. Denny, I think we start with you. Okay. Next one. Okay. That one sounds okay. Appreciate you guys for doing what you need to do. Okay, that's going to be okay. Next one. Oh, man. Shit. Now we're just being ridiculous. Oh, God. Just making up words and sounds. Okay. You guys will like this. Okay, one thing I would do, if you're sending audio files, definitely double check your audio files just to make sure that they're loud enough and that the clarity is high enough. I'll do my best to try to make sure people can hear them, but some of them may be a little difficult. Okay. All these sound great. Cool. So again, just keep in mind the things that I've told you about. I'm not naming names. Someone may or may not have made an appearance. Yeah. Yes, this is true for everybody. If you're sending audio files, I really do commend you. It can be a nerve-wracking experience to share your voice with the world. Although my world is very small. But I do appreciate sending your files. And this is how we all learn. We're all in this together. Okay. Taking sneak peeks at people's files. Interesting. It's without directly hearing the files right now, it's always hard for me to say yes 100% or no, that's completely wrong. I will have to take your guys' word for it. Okay, let me share. Again, I'm gonna have to head out in about 10 minutes or so. So we're going to do a blitz version. Now, if I look at your files next, do keep in mind I'm gonna have to do them a little bit faster than normal. But most likely the points that I'm going to be making are going to be very similar to points I've already made for the last almost 2 hours or so. So definitely pay attention to things, the notes I've made for other people's, especially with regards to like placement or linking and things like that. Okay, so I will do my best to give you as much time as I can, but we're going to try to get through as much as we can in time. All right, having said our disclaimer, let us now look at what you guys did. Okay, we are small again, and we brought this up, and I am sharing audio files. Good. All right, let's take a listen to this one. I think we're doing backwards.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Okay, this is again, I would take a look at your O sounds, because instead of O, you're gonna let O. So for instance,
the ghost was...
That actually sounds relatively close. I do think your placement could be lower. Ghost.
Clothed.
Versus clothed. Watch out for that THED. Okay, it sounds to me like you may speak like an Indian language or dialect. Okay, sorry if you don't, but this is something that is going to be relevant for you regardless. Is that the combination might be good to look at. Just going from a voice TH to that D. That can be a tricky linking exercise. Clothed.
Was clothed in a rose.
Because I'm just not hearing the TH. It's just clothed versus clothed.
In a rose-colored coat.
Rose-colored coat versus rose-colored coat. Here, there's between rose-colored coat and rose-colored coat. Your placement's really high intense. Try to open it up more. Rose-colored coat. Okay, so ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Okay, so pay attention to, again, placement and those THED combinations. Play it one more time. The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
I would also say you're putting a little bit heavy stress on rose. I'm hearing rose-colored coat versus rose-colored coat. Most likely your stress would fall on coat. Okay, so just a note on those. Thank you for sending that audio file. Moving on to our next one. Try and close this so I don't get distracted.
The woman and the man were with the woman.
Oh, this might be too low.
The woman and the man were with the woman.
I'm sorry if you guys can't hear this. I can hear it a little bit, so I'm going to give some quick feedback.
The woman and the man were with the woman.
Has a robotic feel to it. The woman and the man were with the women. The woman and the man.
The woman and the man were with the woman.
Okay, so this is actually our next video, by the way. It's going to be another Squid Game video, taking a look at how to, if you sound flat or if you sound robotic, how can you avoid that? And the big thing is going to be things like dealing with your stressed words.
The woman and the man.
I'm hearing the woman and the man versus the woman and the man. Try to raise your pitch on your stressed words. The woman and the man.
We're with the woman.
I'm here. We're with the woman. That's what I'm hearing. Versus we're with the woman. We're with the woman. Raise the pitch higher on woman. Woman and the man. We're with the woman. Versus the woman and the man. We're with the woman. Okay, just see how big a difference that makes just by having that stress become a little bit more noticeable. Raise your pitch on your stressed words. It's going to have a huge impact. Okay. Although I do commend you for shaking my house, because if I had a subwoofer, oh my gosh, we would have no foundation because you're shaking us down, man.
The woman and the man were with the woman.
I think that's why people can't hear it. The register is so low that like elephants and alligators are like the only ones that can hear that, man. It's so low. It's great. I love bass. Let's listen to our next one. Okay. Thank you for sending that.
The rose was clothing in a colored coat.
Let me hear that again.
The rose was clothing in a colored coat.
I feel like we combined. I feel like we combined some things on this sentence. This is the sentence again.
The rose was clothing in a colored coat.
I feel like I'm hearing like the rose was clothing in a colored coat. It's kind of what I feel like I'm hearing. Versus the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. So I feel like we kind of got jumbled on the words.
The rose was clothing.
I would say clothing. If that's that word, then I would make sure you're saying clothing. Clothing. It's like oathing, clothing. Make sure that that's a little bit clearer. Okay.
In the colored coat.
And then color. You want more of that schwa sound, just like color. So it's not ka, it's more k. Close your mouth more. Relax your mouth and your jaw. Relax your mouth or your throat. Also raise the mid back of your tongue a little bit higher to get more of a k. So it's not ka, it's k, k, colored, colored.
In the colored coat.
And so colored, it's more colored. Okay.
The rose was clothing in a colored coat.
Yeah. So it's again, I feel like we picked which words to say. I'm not hearing all the words from this sentence there. Okay, my apologies if it is there and I'm just not hearing it. Just a note on that. Okay. Yeah, I hope that is helpful. For sure. Okay. Next one.
The woman and the man were with the women.
Okay, a little bit low on the audio, but I think you guys can hear this a little bit better than that other one.
The woman and the man.
Okay, I do think you put the stress on man. The woman and the man. The woman and the man. I do think it's a little bit tense on man with the and sound. Man.
And the man.
Because I'm hearing man, man versus man, man. Can you hear a difference between man and man? Because just trying to get that a little bit more open and lower.
The woman and the man were with the women.
And then with the again, I would try to get that a little bit smoother. I would hold that th longer with the woman.
And were with the women.
And again, women. Watch out again, short eye, long eye. So I'm hearing women versus women. Women. So I'm gonna say we, it's more we.
Women.
So I'm hearing we, do you hear that? Versus we. Woman and the man. Woman and the man were with the women. Okay, so those would be my big things. Watch out for man. Getting that a little bit more relaxed. Woman and the man were with the women. I would also say that women and the man with though that linking, because we'll watch out for that linking, and then women with that the min sound. Okay. As a beta makes the note. Thank you for sending that audio file. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Hope that is helpful. But to memorize a sentence before recording it. Interesting. I guess you're doing this on your phone. I mean, different phones can do different things. I know some phones allow you to have like two things open at the same time. so that way you can see the document, and then you could also see it, or you could have it written down on a piece of paper or something like that. I feel like there are ways around memorizing it if that is an obstacle for you. But if you have to memorize it based on your situation, I get that too. So that can be a challenge. So I do appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some people don't have access to a computer when they're doing it. Yeah, I think it depends what situations are. Yeah. There are ways around it, but I don't know if everyone has access to them necessarily. In general, like for instance, when I make the recordings and things like that, I'm able to do it on my desktop, but I have I have my laptop, I have extra microphones and things like that. I'm not sure if you guys do. Okay, so we looked at this one. Thanks for sending that.
The woman and the man.
Okay, let's see. 2 more files I want to take a look at. Next one.
The girl was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Okay, let me play again.
The girl was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Say it again.
The girl was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Rose-colored coat. I want to say
the girl was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
It sounds to me like things are coming in. So I think I know what's happening. So I think you're really paying attention to keeping things reduced and relaxed and low and things like that. What's happening with this is that I think it's causing some of the words to slur slightly. Let's see if I can give an example.
The girl was clothed in a...
So for instance, clothed. Vowels are more important than consonants, but consonants are kind of like they're what shape your word in a lot of ways. They kind of give the backbone so that it doesn't just become mush. So for instance, clothed. I'm also hearing more clothed. Clothed.
Was clothed in
like clothed versus clothed. So like getting that cl sound a little stronger would have been helpful. Clothed. And then at the very end, just getting that th just like a touch stronger would have been really helpful to kind of shape that word.
Rose was clothed in a...
Because it's like clothed versus clothed. So what I would recommend, again, try to get that cl sound stronger and try to get that sound stronger. Clothed, because otherwise it's going to kind of turn to mush.
Was clothed in...
So I mean, clothed versus clothed, just a note. Okay.
In a rose-colored coat.
Yeah, it seems like it's the L sounds. The L sounds were it almost sounds like they're getting removed a little bit too much. I think it could be that kind of deciding, do we need a light L? Do we need a dark L? What in general I would say for L sounds, if the L is like one of the last sounds of your word, those are the times where it's safest to use a dark L. Like for instance, if you have like trouble or like circle or level, situations like that, those are situations where a dark L perfectly natural. Times where the L is more in the middle of a word kind of gets into this gray area where I think in general it can be safest. It can be safest to make a light L sound. So for instance, clothes, you want that. Or like for instance, wallet, a word like wallet. This is a word where you could use a dark L, you could say wallet. You could say that, but in a lot of ways, having the light L really helps with clarity. Wallet. So I would personally say for dark L's, I would save them for if it's the very last sound of a word. Okay, just a note. Okay. Yep. No worries about it. Denny, it is not just you. This is everyone goes through this. When I first started making videos, I hated every aspect of it. The more you do it, the more you kind of forget. You're able to kind of create distance, like, oh, that's how I sound. Like whatever. You don't even notice. Like I don't even notice when I make videos anymore. I don't even notice, like, oh yeah, that's how I sound. Like it's just I think it's just a sign that you need to do it more. Okay. I see there's some other comments. I'll be right there. I just want to finish this one.
The girl was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Yeah, I think the L sounds. Sorry if you hear my son. It's nap time. He's a little upset. Actually, let me I guess he's okay now. But hey, sun's back. Good morning, good evening. Everyone hates it, but just changing your L sounds, I think would have had a really big impact on this sentence.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
Because instead of saying ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat, it would have been the ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat. Colored coat. You know, it would have helped with the comprehensibility a lot. So I would say the big thing is else. In general, I think the placement, things like that are pretty good.
The ghost was clothed in a rose-colored coat.
And especially, you know, compare this to like the files that you were sending me, what, like a month ago, 2 months ago, however long ago. I think you'll hear a big difference there, honestly. Okay, yeah, I think you'll hear a very big difference in the placement. Okay, all right, thanks. I appreciate that kind of comment on the thumbnails. Yeah, thumbnails are so tricky with YouTube. You don't, things that you think will do really well sometimes do horribly. And then things that you're like, oh, I don't have time to make the thumbnail that I really want to, so I'll make a new one later. I never actually end up making a newer thumbnail for it because it actually does well. So thumbnails are super hard to predict. So hearing positive comments on thumbnails is always helpful. It's like if you want to leave a comment on a video but you don't know what to say, just let me know how you felt about the thumbnail would be super helpful. You'd be like, that thumbnail sucked, Jeff. That was the worst thumbnail I've ever seen. That's really helpful. Versus like, oh, the thumbnail was really great. It made me click. That's also really helpful too. Yeah. So that's really good to know. Delphi asks, and I think that's an I after the F. I'm sorry if it's not. In visual lessons, and you give us review. Yeah. So in general, so question about the pronunciation classes. So I had it up earlier, but basically the very first day, I can bring it up again. The very first day in general for pronunciation classes, the very first day is we go through the test. Okay. So the first class we go through. So we go through all this. It takes probably about 10 to 15 minutes. We identify which sounds are great versus which ones are ones we may want to target in future classes. Okay. And then the next few classes are going through targeted exercises. So for instance, if you had a hard time with like sit, seat, you know, we'll look at the short eye and we look at the long eye, and we kind of just go through all the sounds that you had issues with. And then once we finish going through these, usually we take the pronunciation test again to kind of check your progress. Okay, usually there's some things where we've made improvement on. Usually there's some things that we've kind of forgotten and we're like, oh, I need to review that. And then there may be some things that we need to do more intense review on. Okay, and then after that, we move on to other things. So we talk about reductions, we talk about linking, we talk about stress. And our goal when we do pronunciation classes is we're working up to looking at transcripts of native speakers talking. So like we listen to native speakers, we see what they're doing, and then we try to imitate what they're doing. So we see like, oh, they put the stress here, they put the stress here. Let's try to say this sentence and do the same thing. So that's kind of the progression that we use in our classes. Okay, so just a note on that. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. Okay, we got to there. Huge difference. Yeah. No, I think you're doing great stuff. Yeah, keep it up. I think you're definitely on the right track. Oh, thanks, Hassan. I know that can't be entirely true because I look at some of the numbers and I'm like, that really didn't do well. Yeah, I appreciate that. My name, a great question. So I pronounce it as Jeff. I've had people call me Geoff. I heard people call me Joff. Have people call me Goff. The way I say it is Jeff. In some ways, it's a simple name because it's just the S sound, but not all languages quite have that sound. And it can be a little bit unusual for some people. It's not that they're molding or they're upset about the thumbnails, it's that they don't click them. You know, it's that's the that's the issue, is that they're not upset about it, they just don't click it, and that leads to poor performance and things like that. So I'm always experimenting with thumbnails. I like my thumbnails. I think they're interesting, but it doesn't matter to me. It matters to the people who are seeing them. So again, kind comments about them or not so kind. Be critical. Let me know in the comments things you like, things you hate. Be like, I didn't click your video on purpose because you did this in your thumbnail. And I'll be like, okay. Let me know. All right, I see one more file we'll take a look at. Here it is.
The G host was class in a rose-colored coat.
I don't even know what to say for this. So I won't. Just
The tea host was clasped in a rose-colored coat.
I don't even know what to say about that. Like, that's the most natural of everyone's. What? Always great to end on that. And then he asked me to talk about Boom Hour for a second. So this is cool talking about Boom Hour from like anything else. That's how he talks. All right. So if you're a King to Hill fan, that's a quick impression for you to end the lesson. All right. That was a lot of files, guys. You sent me a ton of audios, which is great. You know, again, I can't do these streams without you. I've enjoyed kind of providing some feedback. I hope they've been helpful for you, though. Because that doesn't matter how I feel. It matters how you feel. So let me know, you know, if you're watching this after our live, you know, did you enjoy this? Did you find this helpful? Leave a comment. Or if you don't want to leave a comment, leave a like. Or if you didn't like it, you can leave a dislike. No one will see it except for me, but you can do that if you want to get your voice heard. Things like that. Yeah, as always, I appreciate it. Again, tomorrow for my people who've watched Squid Games, my wife and I finally finished it. So applause to us because we can finish shows sometimes. I have another Squid Game video where I took an audio file, kind of similar to what we did earlier with Wee Ha Jun. So we took an audio file from the front man, and then I was like, hey, how can I? So I know it was already shot, but can I play with this audio file to make it sound more natural? So that's kind of what our next video is going to be about. We also have it coming up later this week. We'll have some more workout videos because people seem to enjoy those. In fact, you can help me. Right now, I have a poll on the community tab asking what type of workout video you would like next. So we did one on reductions. I think right now placement's in the lead. Placement's always a hot topic. So we may be doing a video on 10 minutes of just practicing your placement. But if you want a different one, you can let me know. Thank you to Z. Of course, accolades for our singer who needs to give us some encore and performances and things like that. And of course, it's always, I appreciate that, Julian. Okay. Yeah, get really angry. Press it twice, right? I appreciate that. But yeah, keep an eye out for that video for tomorrow. Hopefully I have a thumbnail that gets you to click. If it doesn't, though, you can let me know in the comments why you hate it and things like that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for your time. I always appreciate spending my Saturdays with you. And I know you have many options in terms of pronunciation teachers and things like that. So thank you for spending a little bit of your time with me. I do appreciate it. You guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. And I will see you next week. Yeah, take care.